Wouldn't you say? Oh. See? See? That's the intelligence. Agreeing. So, either you agree or you disagree with me, and it doesn't really matter. But if you can actually agree that Wednesday is significant, and that actually means a lot, then what does that mean? This is contemplation in the real. What does that mean, that it's significant? What makes it so significant today?
Choice.
Say that again?
Choice.
I like that, choice, yeah. And it's actually true. The determining factor on whether or not an experience is considered pleasurable or painful is based upon how you choose to experience it, how you choose to see it. So what is so profound which occurred today? What was the learning that happened today? And within your own personal experience and process of that, are you able to see where you can then improve in your ability to engage with Wednesday? And it begins to make incredibly good sense, actually. A huge amount of intelligence exists simply in the way that we begin to relate to our world. And we have options, we have choices. We can go very fast. We can go very slow. Or we can attempt to find balance in the middle. And all have their benefits, but also all of them have their challenges. That's very beautiful. And that's the thing with making a choice. You choose that. And once the choice is made, it is actually a matter of fact. So there's no choosing differently. But when the option, the opportunity comes up once again to make a choice, then you are free. You're absolutely free to decide based upon the information which you've just collected from that. And that, which I'm speaking of, is our past. So the past is an incredible marker for the maturing practitioner of life, and is skilled, this past, at cultivating a greater ability to make the correct choice. That's a saying, you must be choosy. But there's another saying that there's no such thing as a bad choice or a wrong choice. So if we went with that piece of logic for a moment, then everything opens up quite a bit more. It eliminates this concept of good and bad. It actually sets it quite clearly right down the middle. So there's no such thing as a wrong choice. It just simply is that which you are experiencing. And that's where meditation comes so strongly into that loop of understanding. Because within the meditation practice, we gain the opportunity to see all possibility. And within that possibility, in an ideal world, we're sitting in such a way with ourselves that it is impeccable in our ability to communicate and be truthful with ourselves. And as we become grounded within that ability to be good communicators and truthful, we start to see that the experience on each side is actually being experienced, for the lack of a better word. And within that training ground, we become incredibly comfortable with either way that it goes. And this is continuing on that conversation of becoming content with oneself, in our environment, in what we have, and what we don't have. And within that ability that comes just simply through sitting with yourself is a great freedom. And I do not want to be that person that says things that everyone always says, but it does invoke that. To become very content with who you are invokes an incredible freedom. And what exists within that freedom is all that you choose or all that you wish to come to fruition. And I'm saying that because within the concept of freedom, it is at a moment in time not bound by a concept. It is not already predestined with a solution. It is actually cracked wide open, but with a profound amount of steadiness. And if we can learn through relationship with ourselves to cut through our reality within that space that is existing between it all, then we get an opportunity to learn at a frequency or at an intelligence level that surpasses this mundane experience of choice. This way or that way. It is eliminating this way or that way, and it becomes the way, the path. You are on the path. You've actually already committed to the path. As much as you are exploring the path, you are actually committed to it. And that, I think, is innate. It's by birth. There's no way around it. I work informally and formally with a lot of children these days, just the phase that I'm in my life. And their choices have huge ramifications on their immediate emotional stability. But their ability to transcend that emotional tie is actually the intelligence of the universe speaking through them, if you want to become poetic with it. And that's that space between, that the choice was made and then the choice is let go of. The choice is made and the choice is let go of. But there's a moment of crying or upset because of whatever it may be, and it's usually very, trivial and could be fixed at any quickness. But that example is actually the example of the innate quality around our ability to choose a direction. Such as how we enjoy a day such as Wednesday. It's pretty profound. So that space in between is the 3. 1 plus 1 equals 3. So that's this nonsensical perfect sense. The space between. So within meditation, you choose to sit a certain way. And I always instruct people to ensure that they're sitting comfortably and do not move from that place. And what immediately begins to happen after I say that statement is that one questions the choice that is made for the seat. So even the meditation seat itself is actually teaching us how to become content with what we have and who we are and why we're here even. Here meaning, why am I sitting like this? And developing an ability to soften oneself in the discomfort or comfort that exists within that body. And if you can do that within your meditation seat, then it becomes undisturbed qualities that begin to emerge. Even the wiggling of the nose or the twitching of the ear, however you do it, becomes a disturbance within the overall deepening of the meditation. To become as still as possible. And that stillness comes through, again, being content. So the mind is at ease, and the mind becomes at ease not through being superimposed, but rather because it has worked with itself in such a way that it has removed that which is challenging. These are the saintly types that exist out there in the world. Remove the challenge out of the doing. This is, again, something that is really innate within an individual. We have to actually quite often teach somebody how to work, how to do, how to relate to the task at hand without getting frustrated or impatient. I don't know if you can remember that far, back when you were little. And it's a personality thing potentially, but it goes very general. So it's seeing the joy within the work that you're doing, and that's that whole karma yoga thing. Karma yoga is yoga in action. So doing something for the sake of the work itself, not necessarily for the fruit. What fruit? I don't see much fruit. But there's immense joy at this moment in time. That's what it's saying, is there not? And depending on how comfortable you are in your body, I guess. But if there's discomfort, then what that means is that there's an immense amount of learning that is occurring. Learning day. I love learning days. So it becomes this lifelong pursuit to develop an even deeper relationship and an even deeper relationship and an even clearer understanding as to how you work. You as the individual, how you work. How you work. But as we all know, work is not just from the body, picking up something, moving it. Most of the work is actually done in here, within one's own mind and brain and organization of that and using it as a tool. So the mechanism that you've developed, and it's that mechanism that you've developed in order to induce, produce, balance, when there is imbalance. That's what we want to address. Gord and I were talking about this earlier, actually. To develop such a way that you are no longer mechanized, marginalizing, but instead authentically experiencing the joy that exists in just being. And within that being, no longer need to be that or anything at all. Does that make sense? So it's inside that I'm talking about that's really going to make a movement occur, along with the outside. So it's that inner and outer environment that we are in a constant dance with. It's constant. And what is signifying balance is that when my inner environment and my outer environment are actually coinciding as one and the same. And that's truth, Satya. So now, to be exemplary at that, this should be the next 15 years of positive challenge, I would suggest. To make it known to your outer reality and your inner reality. So if you're very comfortable, you have shelter, you have enough food, then the mind should be reflective of that comfort, that safety, that being held and cradled. So then the question is, well, what is within inside that is enabling that to happen? And within that, what is the challenge that is hindering it? If we can find what is enabling the balance and focus on it, but not to a patterned detriment. That's what I'm talking about, this concept of being, but at the same time, not being. So we must take it on. I must communicate with you like this. Exactly like this, because this is who I am. But I'm not needing to identify with it. So therefore, the practice is then to soften and surrender and let go of that special something which occurs. See what I mean? Between you and I. So in any position, no matter what it is, there is an occurrence. And then there's an identity that's formed around it. And within that identity is the inability to see the simple beauty that exists in front of you. Because we are identifying in such a way that is holding it. So it has to be this way. But if I can establish myself within the process of non-being, then everything manifests and dissolves, manifests and dissolves. And the better I get at the ability to dissolve, the higher chance I have at resolving that tendency inside that is latching. Do you know what I mean? Continuously attempting to catch. And as all of that dissolves, I see the beauty in all of it. Because I am the one who is having an experience. At this moment in time, it's very beautiful. And there's nothing else that's needed. And this is meditation. It's getting to that cadence to such a degree of precision that each time a thought arises, it dissolves. Because I'm becoming that skilled at the rise and the fall of natural movement. But what we find is that a thought rises and we're building support underneath it. And there's so many reasons why we do that. From just pure entertainment to survival to some kind of manipulation, long game con of some kind. And this is conning ourselves before we can con anybody else. We manipulate ourselves before we can manipulate anyone else. But we also dissolve internally before any external dissolving will begin to happen. So this is that very classical spiritual stance that if we want to change something in our outer reality, then that change must happen on the inner first. And always half of the people who hear that statement say, yes, that's actually very true. And the other half say, well, what the? And it's the story, I am. And the practice of meditation addresses the I am component within the human being very clearly. So the I am, which is the self-identifier of the human being, which is considered to be the ego component, is what we want to become subtle, dissolving in such a way that it's not disappearing or going away or bad, but rather it is finding its place within all of the activity, categories, positives, negatives, judgments that we incur just by being around here. Here meaning this world. So to establish yourself consciously on purpose into that ego component of who you are, the I am, and address it again head on, very clearly, that yes, there is pleasure, there is pain. Yes, I am attracted to pleasure and I avoid pain. When pain arises, this is the mechanism. When I'm seeking pleasure, this is the mechanism. And becoming really sophisticated because you're doing it already. Guaranteed, you close your eyes and you have so many thoughts. And then they stop because you remembered, oh yeah, I'm sitting in meditation class, I'm not supposed to have these thoughts. But then they arise again. And they keep rising and falling until you've done something with it, either from the outside or from the inside, so that then they can go back into their dormant position. So it's dormant even, it's not dissolved, it's just dormant. And it's cyclical. So we can look at 2 weeks worth of cycle, we can look 1 month, we can look 6 months, we can look 1 year, we can even look 10 years if we want. And they all exist, depending on what aspect of yourself, your mind, and this I am that you're working with. So to recognize that the activity generator that exists inside of you is all driven from this self-identification. I am. And that this self-identification is a crucial component for your existence. So therefore it must stay. You are. But it is the refinement that we're looking for. Moving from advanced Neanderthals into human beings. Not speaking to any one person specifically, but the crudeness that exists within a lot of the mental activity is what I'm talking about. And that's really where our discussion is going today. Anybody have any questions or comments? Yes. Namaste, sir.
Just a little confused about if you could expound on the dissolving of thoughts
Mm-hmm.
a little more, because you say they lay dormant,
Mm-hmm.
but through practice of meditation, I think you've said this a number of times. I'm a little slow on the uptake, but
That's fine.
okay.
It's actually a very subtle concept.
Yeah, how does
Mm-hmm.
What tool is it? The observation of the thought and letting it be and bubble away, or I'm not sure what tool it is that we use to dissolve the thought and remove it from its dormancy.
Well, one is resolution. You must resolve that which is causing the thought.
So if I'm craving a banana cream pie, and I'm in meditation and I have this image of a banana cream pie and the desire to have that banana cream pie, I resolve that by several methods. I am, wants to go and have a piece of banana cream pie.
Mm-hmm.
Or does the I am look at it for what it is, as thought, and just be with it? And is that it, resolving it in that point? Just being with it and letting it express itself?
There, like you said, that there's many methods. So one is just to get up and eat the pie.
Yeah.
But then it doesn't sound like you want to do that.
Well, it gets old because you
So
keep
then
wanting
the
pie
second
again.
thing is to go deeper to the root that you expressed.
Okay,
And that's the desire.
right.
So that desire is actually connected to the I am as well
Right,
as the pie.
right.
And that's in closer proximity to something that can be really worked with within the practice of meditation.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas the thought of the pie is actually just a manifestation of a deeper root. So if we become very close to the center, very close, then we can actually operate at a place where thoughts are just emerging. And to realize that once you've become aware of it, it's already happened. That's a huge key within thought.
Could you say that again, that last line?
Sure. It's a huge key.
To be aware of it.
So
Catching
the moment that you become aware, it's already happened.
Mm-hmm.
That's the amazing thing about the human being, is that we're so quick.
Oh yeah.
We're very, very quick.
Mm-hmm.
So now the resolution to resolve that which is, let's say, desire, is falling into this category of tapas.
Right.
So just simply accepting the fact that this is who you are at this moment in time.
Mm-hmm.
And you are the bubbly monk that just wants to eat cream pies.
Mm-hmm.
And the more you become acquainted to that aspect of who you are, so let's just call it that ego component, that desire, then the more readily you are able to forgive that part of
that's beautiful.
yourself.
Yeah, I get that.
And then all of a sudden it becomes effortless because it's not, why are you disturbing me when I'm attempting to meditate? It's ha 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 ha. I am so funny.
I love it. Thank you.
Yeah.
That's really wonderful.
And I am quite funny, actually. How about anybody? Yes.
Just kind of a question that came up for me this week was that maybe in its most refined sense, would you describe meditation as higher level thinking or not thinking?
That's a very, very, very good question. What meditation teaches is an ability to think. This is what meditation teaches. To get ourselves out of the traffic of influence. And you can look at it as higher form of thinking or a deeper form of thinking. But it's the true thought that exists for you. The one that is steadily moving you forward. It's the thought that challenges you in a genuine way, that brings about a resolution.
So thought is always going to be part of the human experience.
Thought is a part of the human experience, but it's your ability to relate to it, so that then the need for the thought to produce itself in such a disturbing way is no longer necessary. And we can take it down to a wave-like form. A wave-like. So meaning it does not have any image attached to it per se. It does not have dialogue attached to it per se. The moment you realize that you have the thought, it's already happened.
Right. So
and that's it. I already know. So why are you saying it again?
So existing at that level of the thoughts just as they form.
Just as they form. And then we can become incredibly creative. It's like fractal math.
And would this tie in with like this kind of linearity concept as well then?
For sure.
Like when the loudness and the cacophony of the thoughts with all the stories and everything is whittled down into the essences and the seeds of the thoughts, and that sort of represents that linear path that's easy to follow.
100%.
The flow.
Yeah. Very, very easy to follow because we orientate ourselves through habit. We orientate ourselves through gaining the ability to recognize something which is the same. That's how we get balanced. And there's a huge amount of intelligence that exists within that. So when we're visiting our meditation practice and we go to that depth again and again and again, and we reach that level of communication with our thought, and then when we go into the rest of our day and we are engaging with it and we recognize it when it happens, that same sensation, that same mental state, the same ease of emotion, then this is the recognition. And this is the intelligence of it. And this is the organization, that linear effect that we're so used to because we are linear in fashion as much as we are non-linear. And meditation is incredibly linear. The first 10 minutes, generally, someone's mind is going. The second 10 minutes, someone's body is making a fuss because now you are no longer so comfortable. And if we can get through those two stages, the next 10 minutes is peaceful meditation because the two are working together, the body and the mind. And then it goes two ways. Either it goes back in to the mind being busy, back into the body, and then resting again. Or as we become skilled, we go deeper and deeper into meditation as those 10-minute segments go by. But over time, what begins to happen is this period, this first half an hour, shrinks. Meaning, instead of 10 minutes of mind being active, it goes to 5. Instead of 10 minutes of the body being disturbed, it goes to 5, and 3, and 2, and 1. So that then this period of time spent within the depths of your meditation is increasing. And that all happens linearly, as it can be.
Cool.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Thank you.
You're very welcome. What else? Anything else? Yes.
So within this talk, you've mentioned non-being, also the importance of being, I am. And also this kind of direct middle path between a concept of good and bad. Would you say something on, I guess it's application then? If there's non-being, there's also being, and saying that I am is essential.
Mm-hmm.
Where do we apply one or the other?
Mm-hmm. It comes through the I. So I is the ability to transcend all of the activity that occurs within the mind, and get to a place where you have enough perspective and you're bathing the tendencies with a positive influence. And that again comes through a seasoned, developed practice of meditation. And within that, there's a ability that arises, which again is innate, it's natural, to be in between that which is occurring while you are simultaneously, and it sounds like a lot, but while you are simultaneously completely engaged with that which is occurring. And that is the pure sense of the ego experience. Completely invested, completely present with what is occurring, but simultaneously removed. Not invested within the action which is occurring at the moment in time. Not invested within the concept or the pressure, whatever it is that is invoking. The beauty, the joy, whatever it is. And within that, again, is the, I want to use the word precipice, of the developing and emerging mind that is evolving. That it's right there. It's on the cusp. Right when the wave is emerging and is starting to crest, it's right there. And it's very, very subtle and very quick. So it's a quickening. So there's all kinds of promises if you look into the lineages of yoga and spiritual practice, that if you do this technique or that technique or the other technique, that your karma quickens, that you achieve a higher state of mind, a clear concept of what being is. And it's very true. They're all very true. It is true. That is what happens. It's a quickening. Things move very quickly. And this is the importance for grounded meditation practice, correct eating, good speech, good thought, So all that has been sort of prescribed out of the ancient cultures, which are our ancestors. So that was for very good reason, because the simplification of the activity within the mind and how we relate to ourselves really determines our ability to act within that non-abrasive or non-acting way, to be without necessarily being, to transcend to this more collective form of consciousness, which all the intelligence and wisdom comes from. It's the collective. And then the individual is having that experience of a collective. But simultaneously, the collective is having that individual experience. So the how is determined, like when to act, how to be within those circumstances, is determined through the opening of the path. And each individual has one. It's the opening of a path and your steadiness of footing upon that path. So what needs to happen in order to manifest the relationship is really the question. And it's always simple solution. You must do A, B, C. And that's it. There's no variation of A or variation of B. It's just A, B, C. And that's, again, what creates that linear ability of any wisdom tradition. And the ability for a marker to be there, so these landmarks, and the only way that it can actually be related back to another individual to say, this is how it works. Because there are actually resting points. So for this practice, there's 18 resting points, actually. Starting with being comfortable, getting comfortable. And ending with dynamic stillness, equality of space. You're very welcome. Thank you. We have time for one more. Anything. I can see the questions. Okay, let's close the eyes. Let's bring full, deep breaths into the body. Keeping the eyes closed, bring your gaze into the space just there in front of you. And with that very soft intensity, we want to maintain the integrity of the space. That's the space which exists between thought, idea, emotion, and personality. Maintaining the quality of space uninterrupted by any of that activity. So subtle in its strength. Softening the gaze, very gently and slowly allow the eyes to open. So wherever we are at, there is joy. Wherever you're at within your meditation practice. And also wherever you are at, there is an element of challenge. And those two things exist for a long while. So the ability to see all of it in a nature which is light, which has the ability to laugh, ha 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 ha, at oneself, literally at oneself. But at the same time, having compassion to such a level, compassion to such a level that we begin to act on some of these points that are being revealed to us by our own mind, so that we can connect to this quality of I am in a very pure way, very clear way, a very honest way. And in order to do that, I suggest that you sit at the banks, right at the banks where the river is coming out of the mountain. And that's the river of thought and the river of emotion. And if we can really become comfortable with just watching thought as it moves by, watching emotion as it moves by, then we are more readily and equipped to discover what exists within this I am construct, this self-identifier. Because what we're learning as we watch thought and emotion is how to be within the space between it all. And that's a beautiful gift that one gives to themselves. Again, naturally. There's no secret. It's just spending time with yourself quietly, like this. And it just naturally emerges. What the wisdom tradition has done is just simply noticed that natural experience, that natural learning, and brought it to the surface, highlighting it. Very easy. But we have to start from becoming comfortable, and then listening to the rhythm of the heart, and then noticing that there's all this fluid that's moving around within the body, and then the warmth that comes from the body, and then the space of the body, and go, ah, yeah, this is my body, so comfortable, so relaxed. Then we have to learn how to breathe in a very specific way that is not in accordance to anyone or anything else but yourself. And it all happens very simply by observing the passage of breath as it moves just there in the opening, and it follows a very specific pattern down into the lungs and expands out to the edges of the body as a sensation, and then returns right back. And within that, embedded within that observation, is your information needed in order to learn how to breathe in coexistence with your body. And that constitutes Hatha Yoga. This ability to connect energy to something material, which is your physical tissue. And that becomes the grounding force for all of the activity of your mind, has something to rest into, energetically and physically. So now it's no longer a scary place to watch thought and emotion. We no longer have to loop them, lasso them, and put them somewhere quickly. We can freely watch it. And once all that clutter moves out, what emerges is this I am, self-identifier. And we resolve the relationship or the quarrel that this I am has with itself, with its life, with its misgains or gains even. Which then brings us to the I of the mind, which is transcending all of that nitter-natter backing and forthing. Which then leads us to another quality of space. So now it's the space of the body, space of breath, space of mind, all sharing one experience. Which then leads the individual to a gazing point, to a listening point, and to ultimately a dynamic quality of stillness that exists within the space. And that's the whole thing. Self-guided, directed by a specific instruction that's only found within an individual, not within anything outside of that individual. Wednesday. Who knew? Thank you very much, everyone. Namaste.